Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today it's time for Friday Reads. Is it the 18th? Let's check. It is. Oh, my sense of the date is uncanny, isn't it? And I have a calendar right there. I hope that you have been having a good week. When last we spoke, I was getting ready to go off for the weekend to visit our daughter and go to the San Antonio Book Festival, which I made a whole separate video about. So I'm not going to rehash that, but we had a great weekend visiting and going to the festival. And then it's also been a really stellar reading week as well. Before we get into all of the weekly news, I want to show you a lovely little bookish gift that I received this week in the mail. I hope that you watch the channel Big Hard Books and Classics, Alan's channel. And if you do, you know that he is not only a voracious reader, but also a musician and an artist. And back in March, he made a limited edition set of special bookmarks with an Irish flair. And so he sent me one of these bookmarks. This is number 17 of 21. We can see more of it if I go this way. And it's signed and numbered, and my name's on there too. It's a lovely little piece of art, and I'm going to be putting it to work in many a book. So thank you again, Alan. This is just beautiful, and also just a nice reminder of our friendship. This week in TV, we are watching, what are we watching? The Last of Us started back up. It's coming out on Sunday nights. So we saw the first episode. It was good. We'll see what happens. I am not a gamer at all, so we have no idea. You see things online where people are either they think it follows the video game or it doesn't, or this person's miscast or whatever. I am not hindered by any of these thoughts because I have no idea anything about this as a video game. It's just a show to me, and that we like a lot, and so it has started up. And then the other thing we're watching is we started rewatching Breaking Bad, which Steven has wanted to do for a while, and I was sort of holding out. I wasn't sure I wanted to. And so far so good. I'm enjoying it again. I think my problem is going to be when it gets a couple seasons in and it's not funny anymore, because at the beginning of the show there's a lot of dark humor, even though it's kind of grisly and the circumstances are terrible, but there's just this kind of offbeat humor that I really like. And then at some point in the show, the plot is still gripping and the characters are still interesting, but there's no more humor. It's just kind of bleak and ruthless after a certain point. So I don't know if I'm still going to be hanging with it then, but we'll see. Maybe, I don't know. Watch it until I don't feel like watching it. I could really use a comedy in there to balance things out, but I don't have one right now. Let's get on to the books. So, like I said, this has been a really excellent reading week. When I left off, I was reading two books that I took along with me on our little weekend trip, and I did finish both of those books. One of them was, oh, what a glare. Sorry about that. The Invisible Life of Euridice Gusmao by Marta Batalha. And the translator, where is the translator? Eric M. B. Becker. And it was translated from Portuguese. This is a Brazilian novel about two sisters that live in the 1940s. This was the April selection for Mariandrea's Books and Bocadillas book club. And I enjoyed this story. It was a fast-paced read. I wouldn't say, well, I mean, as far as the spirit of reading, it was a light read. The content wasn't all light, but it moved along quickly. And it was a fairly short book. I think it was only about 200 pages. So it's set in the 1940s. There are these two sisters, and at some point in their teenage years, the older sister, Guida, she runs off with a guy. And I don't even know if they knew it was with a guy. I guess they knew it was with a guy. Yeah. And then the younger sister, she marries someone that seems like the appropriate person to marry, but he's just kind of a jerk, and he's withholding of his affection and very controlling. And so it's mainly about these two sisters, but there's also a pretty large array of supporting cast. And what I enjoyed the most in this book is that the backstories that she goes into. Now, sometimes when that happens in a book, you're like, oh my gosh, can we get back to the main point? But the backstories kind of are the point in this book, because it's about what has happened in various people's lives that have brought them to the character that they have at the present time of the story. And in some cases, the hardships of life have just made them more resilient and more resourceful. And then in other cases, it's made them bitter or self-absorbed, and just it kind of turn them into negative directions. And so it's interesting to see how similar misfortunes and hardships and obstacles have affected people differently. And then the plot is about Euridice's different attempts to find fulfillment within a very confined and a kind of stagnant life. And then Guida we eventually find out what happened to her after she ran off, and then all the things that she has gone through. And then later in the story, well, now I'm telling you too much. Okay, never mind. So it's about the two sisters and all the stuff that happened, and then the side characters in their lives that at first they hit you with one impression, and then you find out there's really a bunch of reasons how they got that way. So that was the fun of the story. I enjoyed it, and I guess the discussion is still going on because it's the April pick. So I'll stop it there. The other book that I was reading over the weekend that I wrapped up at the beginning of the week is a buddy read with my friend Michael, and it's The Tale of Despereaux by Kate DiCamillo. We're still discussing it. Some of my little tabs are still in the book. This was a reread for both of us, a favorite kind of reread from a favorite author, and we are on a slow and leisurely project to read the works of Kate DiCamillo in publication order. So she's a children's author. She writes both middle grade fiction and then also some books for younger readers as well. And even if you don't read children's books, you may have heard of Kate DiCamillo because she's really close friends with Ann Patchett, who mentions her frequently in her Parnassus books, those videos that she makes, the Lay Down Diaries, and what's the other one? The thing on Friday, like if you haven't read it, it's new to you. She'll mention her friend Kate frequently, and that's who she's talking about. The Tale of Despereaux the Mouse, who was born to a French mother. Even though they're not French, she gave all her children French names. Despereaux is her last and tiniest child. And from the beginning, he is not he's not a conformist. He's different than the other mice. He's very small. He's very inquisitive. He teaches himself to read. He's not interested in dedicating his life to scurrying around, hiding and looking for food like he's supposed to do. And the whole book is populated by people who are different in some way. But they aspire to something else. There's a rat named Rosquero, which is short for Churrasquero. So think about light and dark, which is a really important theme in this book. The rat lives in a dungeon but yearns to be up in the light. I forgot to mention they all live in a castle. And the castle has come on to some sad times after an unfortunate incident that caused the death of the queen and has resulted in soup being banned and outlawed, as well as rats. I'm not going to tell you more about what happens to cause all that or how our characters played a role in these events in case you read the book. But the subtitle is Being the Story of a Mouse, a Princess, Some Soup, and a Spool of Thread. And these are all very important. So the plot has sort of a fairy tale kind of layout where Despereaux falls in love with the princess and takes upon himself a noble quest. And the evil characters aren't entirely evil because the misfortunes of life and their thwarted dreams have kind of caused them to go astray. And then there's, some people in the middle. But it's the themes in this book that really make it wonderful. She takes the idea of dark and light and presents it so carefully in this book, both literally and then thematically, about the light and dark within people and the powers of forgiveness and love, the capacity of people to make terrible decisions and mistakes and still have a glimmer of humanity or goodness or something that can be redeemed within them. And so she doesn't pull back. I mean, there's dark moments in this story, in the plot. There's some mild violence, there's tension, but then she also has this great generosity of spirit in the story as well that makes it really uplifting. And it's a wonderful book to just read and enjoy. And then the teacher in me, still, when I reread it, I think of the great discussions that you can have with children, because she, as a children's book, she's a little more explicit about pointing out some of the thematic ideas that she would like you to consider than you would get in an adult book, but it's still not heavy-handed. And she does use the kind of dear reader affect in the book as well that gives it more of that fairy tale feeling. The power of storytelling is also very essential to this story. So if you have any interest at all reading middle grade fiction and you've never read The Tale of Despereaux, it is really one of the finest. It did win the Newbery Medal when it came out, and I really had fun rereading this, and we are still discussing and enjoying The Tale of Despereaux. And then, I read a book that I had high hopes for, and it was so good. It is, well, it's on my top 10. It's in my top, maybe it's in my top 5. I don't know. It's in the top 10 for sure. If my year is so good that this falls out of the top 10, then I can ask for nothing more in this life, because I loved this book so much. I had the hardest time. I've got to reread the whole thing really soon, because I'm still trying to put some things together. And the book I'm talking about is Under the Eye of the Big Bird by Hiromi Kawakami, and translated by Asa Yoneda. I loved this book. This is on the short list for the International Booker. I haven't read the other books on the short list, so it's probably not fair to say that I want this one to win because I haven't read the others. What if I might love another one more? I don't know. There's a couple of them I would like to read, but if this is all I ever read from that list, then I am a happy woman, because this book was so good. It is dystopian, it is weird, it is strange, and it is puzzling in some ways. So if any of that doesn't sound good to you, you might not like it, because it's not hard to read. It's not like you're just lost and confused and baffled, but you don't get all the answers. And then you get a lot of the answers later on in the book. So let me think carefully about what I can tell you. And something I do want to say is that I've seen a couple of reviews of this book on BookTube, and some of them give out a really big spoiler. So be careful. If this is the first you're hearing about it and it sounds compelling to you, I would say go ahead and read it and then watch some of those reviews and see, just to enjoy thinking about their ideas along with your own, but just proceed with caution. So this book takes place way in the future. And in this future time, human beings as a species are dwindling. The numbers are dwindling, and this is a problem that is addressed in some different ways. Now, something to know about this book is it takes place well in the future, but then once you get to that future, the story's not entirely linear. So it's a novel, but it's chapters. It's like short stories connected together, but it all takes place within this future reality, but maybe not all in a linear fashion. So some of the stories might take place before or after other stories, and also in different places geographically. And at first you're going to wonder, why are things so different? As far as world building is concerned, she does not lay it all out and explain it all up front. The world building, it kind of comes to you gradually as you read the stories, because you will wonder, well, okay, you read a story, you think, okay, this is the setup. Like the first story, we have some people, and the reality that we understand here is that children are no longer being created reproductively. They're being made in a factory in sort of a cloning method using like analogous cells from other animals, somehow synthesized to make humans. And then there's these people called the mothers that are tending to them until they grow up. And So that seems kind of strange and kind of different. And they have Japanese names, but then you get to subsequent stories, and now people are living in towns, and they are having children the old-fashioned way. And in some stories, it's a very structured method where, because women outnumber men, and so there's men that are traveling around and trying to help populate. And then in other stories, they seem to live in family units with more traditional parents. These characters called the mothers reoccur throughout many stories, and they seem to be in a somewhat different category than all the other humans. And it gets weirder from there. At one point, we become aware that there's apparently different efforts that have gone on in different times and places to keep the human race going. So at one point, we find out that there are people that are technically human beings, but they live through photosynthesis, and they're kind of green. And people are not always, well, let me just say this. Something that I thought of at one point in this book. So there is a character who is checking he's doing a genomic scan, and he's checking the genetic makeup of somebody, and he's talking about this person that he's checking being 99.8% identical match to human genomes. And I had to stop, and I went and looked up, because I've heard all my life about how genetically close we are to chimpanzees and bonobos and great apes like that, and it's like 98.9%. And then you just think about, in that little bit of difference, how big of a difference that is when you look at a human and a chimpanzee. So you can be that close genetically and yet that far apart. And so just keep that thought in mind when you're reading this book. How something very, very, very close still has this room for variation. In one of the blurbs, this is from the New York Times: less experimental fiction and more fiction on the human experiment. Kawakami finds humor and warmth in the puzzles of existence and extinction. I think that's a really great comment about this book. And so we meet different characters. There's different points of view. I really love the way the story is told. And then there's the last couple of chapters just really, really draw things together. And watching the reviews, some people, they like or they don't like this part near the end. And I think one of the hallmarks of a really good book for me in my reading, in my personal experience, is when a book breaks rules that usually, like something that I usually don't like, but then I love it in some particular book. Like somehow they pull off something that usually I don't like at all. So I don't like explainery. I don't like when the author seems to think, and I'm looking at you, Orbital, they think that maybe I'm not going to get the point, and so they have to make sure that they make direct comments or explain things. So there's a chapter late in this book that explains a lot of things, but it is so effective. I love that chapter. I didn't need the chapter. I could have really loved the book without it, but I love the chapter because the voice in the chapter I thought was really essential. It's someone that you wanted to hear from the whole time, and then finally you do. And then what is laid out in that chapter was just so fascinating to me. I have read that chapter twice. I had to go back and read it again after I finished the whole book, and to think about other parts of the book in light of that chapter. And then the very final chapter is the one that I am desperate to talk about somebody with. I read the end of the book, then I had to go back and read the beginning. And then I had to go all the way through and skim it all. I had to read the end again, had to read the beginning again. And then I said, I got to get off this loop and just put this book down and let it simmer a while and find somebody to talk to. So please, if you're out there and you have read this whole book, I need to talk about the ending. I'm not going to here, but I really need to. So shout out if you have read this book so we can get together on Voxer or somewhere and discuss the ending. And then I had a whole new theory about it last night, a different theory. And then I had to read it, look at it again and see if my theory holds up. And it kind of does. So anyway, I Totally love this book. It's weird, speculative, lots of things left for you to ponder. I loved it. It's not for everybody. It was fantastic. So that takes me to, all right, still loving the poetry in this collection. I read 1 or 2 a day. It's a slow burn. I'm about halfway through. I'm in no hurry. It's wonderful. Also, I am kind of near the end of The Days of Anna Madrigal by Armistead Maupin. This is book 9 in the Tales of the City series. It is yet another book where this is about the 3rd time where it says this is the last book, and it wasn't. There's still one more. So I can't say much about it because this is 9th book in a series that started in the 1970s. And each time he writes one, it is current to the year that he's writing it. And this one was written in 2014. And it is the ongoing adventures of a group of friends who met in their 20s in San Francisco. And at the head of this group is Anna Madrigal, sort of the found matriarch of this group. She was the landlady at their apartment building in the original book. And at this point in the series, she's 92 years old. And the other characters, she's just a beloved figure in their lives. They're trying to tend to her. They're concerned about her age and her frailty. And in this book, she has some unfinished, I guess, mental business about her past. And we know a little bit about her past from previous books. I can't get into it without spoiling things, but some of the characters are helping her go on this road trip to the place where she grew up. And then other characters are going to Burning Man. Now this is challenging for me because I have exactly less than zero interest in a festival like Burning Man. It's Michael Tolliver because he doesn't want to go to Burning Man either, and he gets swept up on this adventure by his much younger husband and some other people in their group of friends and family that are all enthusiastic and they've been to it before, and he is just like, oh, traffic, dust, sand, noise, what the heck, why are we doing this? Blah. But they keep saying, oh, wait till you get there, it's gonna be great, you're gonna love it. So we'll see what happens. I think Armistead Maupin has a thing about festivals because one of the books back in the 80s also took place at a long festival that some of the characters went to. And in fact, there's kind of a full circle thing here where 2 people who met and had a brief but unfulfilled something at that festival back in the 80s have found each other once again at this point in the series. So that's kind of fun. This is a comfort read. After reading a couple of dystopian novels in a row that were really excellent, but my heart just needed a break from the pondering the future. And so I had to go with Tales of the City. And I'm kind of near the end. There's only 1 book left, so I'm a little bit bittersweet. And then also yesterday I started reading Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. And as you may recall, I put 2 books into my April TBR that are novels written by poets. So it's sort of a hybrid of Poetry Month. And this is one of them. I have read a little bit of Kaveh Akbar's poetry and I enjoyed it. I just started Martyr. This book has been on so many prize lists and best of lists from 2024. And so I really wanted to try it out, and I haven't gotten very far, but thus far it is about a young man named Cyrus Shams, who was born in Iran, but he immigrated with his father at a very young age to the United States. And this happened after his father became widowed because his mother died in a plane crash. And it's a real life event. There was an incident in the late 80s where a plane was shot down accidentally by the U.S. military. So he lost his mother very early on and grew up with his dad. And when he goes off to college, he just really goes down a terrible rabbit hole of drugs and heavy drinking and depression. And he's a poet. And so at the time that this story really gets started, he has been sober for a while, but he still has a lot of unresolved personal issues about his family, and I don't know what else. Like I'm just at the beginning, but he has issues. He's working on the sobriety, but he's got other issues. So I don't know what he's going to do. And I don't know how much of this is, I mean, I don't think it's an autobiographical story, but I know just from a little bit I've read about Kaveh Akbar that he also is in recovery and he also is a poet. So I think there's some of him in Cyrus, but I don't know how much. And that's all I can say about it so far, because nothing much has happened. Except Cyrus has this really funky job that sounds kind of fun in a weird way, where he goes to the medical school and he's given these cards. He goes in and he acts out parts that the medical students, that they're supposed to be working on their manner with patients, and so he plays different roles where somebody has to give him bad health news or explain different difficult things, and then he plays the other part. But he throws in a lot of monkey wrenches into these conversations and makes them harder for the students. So that's what I'm reading right now. And then after the weekend, I'm going to start reading, I always get this title wrong. It's The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. This is also going to be a buddy read with Michael. And we've been meaning to read this. We've been kind of rescheduling it throughout the month and trying to fit it in at the right time. So Monday is the day. And I keep wanting to put the word long into this title. And I think we both do, because we keep saying, okay, we're going to start the long north to the deep south, the long narrow road north. I don't know. I just want to put the word long in the title, and it is not there. It is going to be a TV, I think a limited series coming up. It's about an Australian doctor in a POW camp in 1943, and then I think it moves into the contemporary time where he's older. So I think there's like the younger him and the older him. So the POW camp and a lost love and family issues. So it's supposed to be really excellent, and I'm looking forward to starting it and trying to stop trying to call it The Long Road. All right, so tell me if you've read any of these books or what you thought about any of these books, and especially tell me if you have read or are going to read Under the Eye of the Big Bird, because I have theories. And I hope that you have an excellent weekend. I think we might go to the aquarium this afternoon. We haven't been there. We like to go every month or two because we have a membership. And it's a beautiful day. The whole extended forecast is the low 80s, which is perfect. And I'm going to savor that. I hope that you have a nice time as well. And I will see you soon.